Holy shit. Post-Void is a hella fast and similarly short first-person roguelike shooter developed by YCJY Games. And I feel like the intro spoke for itself regarding what type of game we're dealing with here. Considering its style, Post-Void is probably one of the most idiosyncratic games I have ever played. Just look at all this carnage. What even is all this? I'm gonna tell you, don't you worry. Usually when it comes to the structure of my reviews, I guess the standard I set for myself is story, gameplay, and presentation. Here, however, there isn't much of a story to talk about. Post-Void's premise shows a protagonist lacking a name, and also a head. I mean, he has his head, but instead of keeping his jar of skin and bone filled with a soggy loaf of bread, he's holding it in his left hand, while running around like a madman so he can dump it on a plot of land, giving birth to a beautiful pixelated flower. The quest is quite wholesome, if you disregard the part of it that requires your head juices to be spilled out on the ground. The journey takes us through corridors that could be considered mundane under normal conditions, but here they look more like how a first-person Hotline Miami game could look like. Also, they are filled with weapon-wielding creatures with mouths for heads. As I said, you won't learn anything about this setting. Where are you and why are you doing what you're doing are great questions, but there aren't any answers to them. All I know is that you gotta go fast while shooting and slicing your way through, everything that gets in your way. Post-Void play is incredibly simple. You are in point A, and you have to get to point B while trying not to empty your idol. You see, when the idol runs out of head juice, you'll die. Let's avoid that because I want to see that beautiful flower grow, alright?
Now the flowers will grow.
So what you can do to accomplish that? Shoot guns while painting every interior with crimson matter. The game offers a pistol as a starting weapon in your right hand. In your left lays the idol. That's your continuously draining health bar that you can fill back up with every capped monster. The goal is clear. Run through every corridor while trying to keep the idol full. I mean, you could just turn it upside down or put a cork in it or I don't fucking know, dude. If it runs out, you'll have 3 seconds to off a monster before you go to acid heaven. Guns are hit scan weapons, you click and your hit registers on the spot. Shooting feels responsive and it's hella messy. The pistol is a precise weapon that's easy to score headshots with while running and sliding. The Uzi is a bit more difficult to use since its recoil is harder to control. Pull the mouse down, baby! The shotgun is tasty as hell. It basically turns every ugly hellspawn into paste and there isn't a better feeling in Post-Void than eviscerating 5 of the hideously horrendous hellboys simultaneously. Its reload times are the longest of all the weapons, but it's to compensate for the fact that it is a weapon of mass destruction, a fun shotgun to wreak havoc with. Weakling. The knife is probably the hardest weapon to use in the game. That's due to the fact that it requires you to get up close and personal with the uglies. The longer you hold down the left mouse button, the bigger you swing. Clicking makes you stab. Using it is a delight, simply because of how fun it is to dance between enemy projectiles. Even though you are hit scanning, the enemies have to rely on projectile weapons, so you will have a jolly fun time sliding, sidestepping, jumping between bullets. Getting hit feels like playing every Max Payne 3 cutscene, simultaneously, but for like a split second. It looks great and doesn't obscure the screen that long. The colorful flash works as a great damage indicator in my opinion, simply because of how brief it is. It's not like smearing the screen with like strawberry jam.
So real.
The HUD is non-existent. You can only see your weapons and your idol. It's straight to the point and minimal since in a chaotic shooter I want to see every small detail when I dive headfirst into battle. Or slide, feet first. Sliding feels especially great even though you can only slide forward. Nothing like Neoing your way under bullets and then gutting a monster with a knife. I highlighted the knife especially since its use will require most of your acrobatic skill. With every other weapon, there is the possibility to quote-unquote snipe your enemies from a distance, even though you'll only run around in somewhat claustrophobic hallways. Those hallways, however, will become more labyrinthian as the game progresses. Enemies also evolve with you in a way, with your average monster mafioso-looking dudes getting more and more agile. Also, their clothes are getting cleaner and cleaner, I don't know what is going on. Enemy variety also increases progressively with these melee creatures, whatever these are. There are also stationary eye turrets, which are also mouths. Flying buzzsaws that bleed, and flashbanging hands. Wow. As soon as the melee and the gun crowd gets mixed, the game becomes the most fun, since you'll have to pay attention to gun-wielding enemies who bombard you with projectiles, while also trying to keep melee enemies as far as possible. Turrets and buzzsaws are top priority because the former spit a fuckton of projectiles while the latter come in big numbers. There are 11 levels and at the end of each, you can choose between upgrades. These can be more ammo in your magazine. You can reload whenever. Ammo is infinite, but you have to change mags still. faster reloads, enemies exploding when killed, slower enemy projectiles, and also the possibility to swap your weapon to another. There is an upgrade that turns your bullets into ones that can bounce off walls, but if I'm being honest, I didn't see any impact of this one. As a newcomer to the game, the compass is a great upgrade. It straight up tells you where to go in the maze-like corridors to reach the pool at the end, filled with upgrades and head juice. After a while, I feel like it's not gonna be necessary to use it though, simply because of how easy it is to get used to the corridor maze that becomes more vertical as the game progresses. You can only select 1 out of 3 upgrades at the end of each level, and these all feel useful. The ones I used the least were the less slowdown upon touching enemies one, since you can jump away from enemies when you get stuck in them. Needless to say, health and more ammo are the way to go, especially if they are coupled with a shotgun. When you die, you start all over again. An average playthrough will only take you like 10 minutes to complete. Hold up! What? Melon, you want to sell me a game that can be finished in 10 minutes? I can hear you asking. Yes, because it's hella cheap and fun to replay. The gameplay loop feels incredible. Controls are simple and snappy while the shooting is easy to get into. Sometimes I feel like the hitboxes behave weirdly, especially if I look up and down and the sprites get distorted. Sometimes I can headshot all the monsters, sometimes they just keep taking it, though they still go down rather easily. It is hectic, fun, and hopefully watching this video won't be dizzying. So yes, here's the deal. It's a fun, arcadey roguelike you can finish hella fast, and after finishing it you can keep on competing for high scores. The game doesn't have too much content to it, that's fair, but it's clearly a small studio's attempt to show what they are capable of. If there is an aspect they went all out on though, it's the presentation. The first time I played this, it felt uncomfortable, somewhat dizzying, but only for the first few minutes, then I turned into the headless gunman of Acid Town. From a visual perspective, the only title that could be compared to Post Void is Hotline Miami. However, the only common ground I can find between the two are the somewhat trippy color choices that make up the washed out VHS aesthetic of Hotline Miami and Post Void's busy looking corridors. Busy in the sense that everything is moving. Monster designs are inventive and odd, and the sprites are incredibly detailed. They telegraph their attacks in a straightforward manner, and evading a bite while cutting up whatever these things are makes Melon a happy boy. Unfortunately, location variety is kinda lackluster. You'll get used to the way the corridors look rather fast. I felt the same way about the music that accompanies your carnage, since it's only one track. A little bit of variety would have been cool in that front. The menu theme is minimal and much needed after that intro, holy shit. When you pause the game, you'll hear a slowed down version of the in-game music that I actually enjoyed a lot more than the actual track for some reason. It's not a bad instrumental at all, don't get me wrong, it's just the most normal sounding thing in the entire game. It's a neat little guitar focused track, but after playing the game for hours it probably feels alone by itself, and unfortunately to me, it gets boring a bit. You get an achievement for turning down the music, by the way. But, the acid trip visuals, chunky weapon sounds, and the mess that you make while murdering these stylish but poor sods is top notch. I feel like my complaints towards this game can be chalked up to the overall scope of the project. It's a $3 game, don't be too harsh, especially considering how banger of a game it actually is. Post Void is a simple game that embodies the spirit of old school shooters. Sticking to their frantic nature and snappy gunplay while accompanying all the aforementioned qualities with jarringly beautiful pixel art, noisy and also guitar-focused music, and a surreal setting. I wholeheartedly recommend Post Void. I got it from a friend in August and have been replaying it weekly since. It does have its shortcomings, but if we are being honest to ourselves, just look at the price tag. It's clear that these guys are capable of making even better games, and this was just them experimenting with the FPS formula. Can't wait to see what they will come up with in the future. And with that, I would like to thank you for venturing into this place with me. It was a colorful and bloody fun time. I really wanted to review this game in one way or another because it felt like it's doing its own violently colorful take on the genre, and I love shooters to an unhealthy extent. I also wanted to put out something short while I'm working on the upcoming Homeworld Cataclysm video. So there's that. Huge thank you to YCJY for making this game. I'm gonna be coming back to it a lot. And thank you for watching, I appreciate it. Take care.